So in this part of the video, we're going to go ahead and talk about creating a IK spline with our same polygon cylinder. We're going to use the IK spline to actually control the animation using controllers off of the spline that we can grab, and they impact. If I go to wireframe mode, you can see inside there's this curve. I'll turn off my geometry as well. That's bending our IK, our joint chain. Excuse me. So you can get tail animation, or anything that would whip as you were animating it can be driven with an IK spline. So let's go ahead and create our first IK spline. Okay, so first what we need to do is make sure we have bound geometry to joints. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up my IK spline options here. And what we're going to make sure we have is auto create curve checked on, and the number of spans can be set as 1, and I'll maybe do ease in and ease out as the twist type for a more natural looking twist. And similar to drawing out the curve for regular IK, we just click the root joint all the way up the spine chain to the last joint. So now, I don't know if you could see in the video clearly, but there is this dark blue line. Turn off my polygons, you can see it very clearly. But to select it, you got to go into my option, my component mode option for control vertex. Got to make sure that or actually you don't want control vertex, you want your curve point. It's just very hard to see with these joints in the way. Even if I hide the joints, go to object mode, then I go to control vertex. Okay, there's a vertex. Okay, now I have something that I can use as a handle to manipulate my curve. So if I turn my polys back on, that's frustrating. No one wants to do that, even though you can select those. There's a better way. So I'm going to show you that right now. It's using the concept of clusters. Okay, now what clusters are deformers. And if I open up the option box, we'll go to help on clusters. Okay, so a cluster let you control a set point of objects, CVs, vertices, with varying amounts of influence. The deformer applies transformations to the point in a way that lets you adjust the precise percentage that each point is affected. So basically what it's doing is you can tell a cluster to average out a single or multiple objects, points. So in this case, we're going to use the control vertices here. So if I select these two control vertices, and there are 2 selected, I click apply on my cluster creation options. Now I have this little handle here. This is a little cluster handle here. So if I go in, it's still buried inside the mesh. So what I want to do is click Control A to open up my attribute editor, and now I want to move it out in the Z axis here. So that's the third input box here. So let's just pick 3 units. Alright, let's do maybe 2.5. Okay, that's a good amount of distance. So now I have something over here that I can select that will influence the control vertices that are attached to my curve. So that's all well and good. We still have some issues in that we don't have a way to secondary animate, even though if we can move this up here, it is actually, when you translate it, changing the location of those vertices. So if I now go into my, let's turn off the poly so you can see, control vertex, and I select the object's control vertices, you can see they're moved up. Now if I move the cluster down, now they're back where they were. So you can use just one and translate it up and down, but what I usually do is I'll make, in this case, we just have 4 points. I could add more points with my curve editing tools, but let's just keep it simple. I'm going to go ahead and deform, create another cluster up here. I'm going to go into the attribute editor for the cluster and the handle shape, and I'm going to move that out 2.5 in Z. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here with these bottom 2 points. Deform, create cluster, have it push out again. Okay, we turn our geometry back on. You can see that our defaults have been modified for that. But you can reset them to 0, and your geometry should look like it should in rest. Now with these other clusters, you can start to animate some pretty interesting stuff, right? With, you know, usually a switch between this type of setup and a forward K setup is the most optimal, because now if I wanted to just animate the joints at the top, let's put on my joints so you can see them. I can't really go in and forward K animate them without having some way to switch. So we will talk about creating a IK-FK switch, but for now, this has just been a very basic look at 3 kinds of rigs. Obviously, these are just very introductory concepts that we're going into. I will point out one other thing about this spline IK is that if you go into your curve and look at the options for your actually it's the IK handle that we created here. Advanced twist controls. What this is going to do is set some options for you to actually have a twist. So this is useful if you're doing a human spine, because there's got to be some way for you to actually naturally twist and have the geometry follow. You can see it freaks out when I set that. That's because I have to enable certain things correctly here. But anyway, that's for another video. We're going to get into that in class as well. I just wanted you to be familiar with the fact that there are separate twist controls for the spline IK. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.